the whistleblower. I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies. It is the secret symbol.
Jim Carrey became a legend with a spark no one could ever copy. But behind all that wild energy was a shadow he kept hidden for years. At 63, he's finally breaking his silence, revealing the 6 actors he can never forgive. These were the ones who embarrassed him in public, twisted his fame against him, and even dragged his daughter into Hollywood mess like she was just a side note. These weren't random faces in the crowd either. Some were people he admired deeply. A few were co-workers he treated like teammates, like family, and their betrayals hit him harder than any punchline he ever delivered on screen. And the reasons he still can't stand them? Way more shocking than the names themselves. First up, Tommy Lee Jones, the man who looked Jim straight in the eye and said, "I hate you." Tommy Lee Jones lands the #1 spot for a reason, because he did what almost nobody in Hollywood would dare. He didn't whisper it behind closed doors. He told Jim Carrey face to face that he hated him, with zero hesitation. Even decades later, Jim still shakes his head in disbelief when telling the story because it was just that intense. Back in 1994, Jim was untouchable. Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber had made him the king of comedy. Getting cast in Batman Forever felt like leveling up to a whole new world, especially since he'd be working alongside Tommy Lee Jones, an Oscar-winning actor he'd looked up to for years. Jim walked onto that set buzzing with excitement, but that good energy didn't even survive the first week. Crew members later said the tension was so thick you could feel it in the air. Tommy reportedly kept complaining that Jim's wild improv was messing with the tone of the movie, saying it already leaned too silly. And Jim's high-energy style pushed it over the edge. Between takes, Tommy wouldn't even glance his way. Instead, he'd talk loudly about serious actors, while Jim stood there pretending not to hear, holding his cool even though everyone knew what was going on. Then came the night everything exploded. Jim spotted Tommy Lee Jones having dinner at a quiet restaurant near the Warner Brothers lot and decided to stop by, thinking maybe they could clear the air, maybe even share a handshake or a laugh. But Jim said as soon as Tommy saw him, his whole face changed. The color drained out. His body stiffened like he was holding back fire. He stood up, gave Jim a forced hug and said, "I hate you. I really don't like you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery." Those words hit Jim like a punch to the chest. In that moment, he realized this wasn't friendly teasing. This was real hate. That same weekend made everything even worse. Dumb and Dumber dominated the box office, while Tommy's serious passion project Cobb completely tanked. People on set said Tommy took it personally, like Jim's success was a direct insult thrown in his face. Rumor has it, Tommy started calling Jim's films nonsense comedy, dismissing the kind of humor that made Carrey a superstar. And when Jim's movie made more money in 3 days than Cobb did in total, that was the last straw. From then on, Tommy avoided rehearsals, refused to make eye contact, and even asked production to separate their dressing rooms. It was like he couldn't stand even breathing the same air as Jim. They never made peace. Not during filming, not after, not ever. For Jim, that moment became a cold lesson in how brutal Hollywood egos could get. And that was just the beginning. Number 2. Shia LaBeouf, the rival who didn't just cross the line, he jumped over it with both feet. It all started from what should have been a harmless joke. During the 2014 Golden Globes, Jim cracked a lighthearted line about Shia's plagiarism scandal that had been blowing up everywhere. He said, "Dying is easy. Comedy is hard." I believe it was Shia LaBeouf who said that. So young, so wise. The crowd roared with laughter. But Shia, he wasn't laughing one bit. Instead of shrugging it off like a pro, Shia reportedly lost it. He got angry and then took it somewhere completely out of bounds. People close to Jim said what came next felt downright disrespectful. Shia went after Jim's daughter, Jane Carrey, who was already grown, doing her own thing, building a music career. He posted a clip of her band online with a caption that repeated old false tabloid rumors about Jim's private life. And the wild part? He didn't even come up with the insult himself. He copied it from an old Rupert Murdoch rant about Hugh Grant, just swapped the names around, like he didn't even care to hide how lazy it was. That move crossed a serious line, and it made Jim realize some people in Hollywood don't just play dirty, they go low. People close to Jim said he was stunned. Sure, Hollywood teasing is normal, it's part of the game, but dragging someone's family into it? That's a whole different level. Jane's post vanished within half an hour, probably because even Shia realized he'd gone way too far. He followed it up with a quick apology tweet, but it felt rushed, like he was just trying to erase his tracks before it blew up even more. But by that point, the damage was done, and Jim never spoke publicly about it again. Then fans noticed something strange. Around that same time, Shia's Twitter account was following just one person, Jim Carrey's daughter, Jane Carrey. But the moment he posted that cheap shot, he quietly unfollowed her, like he was trying to scrub the whole thing from history. It came off as this weird mix of resentment, frustration, and maybe even obsession. Whatever it was, it sealed Shia's name on Jim's blacklist for life. Number 3. Jenny McCarthy. The relationship that started as a Hollywood dream and ended like a headline from a heartbreak story. Out of everyone Jim's ever crossed paths with, Jenny's name hits the hardest. She wasn't a rival or a coworker, she was someone he loved. And yet, her chapter is the one Jim avoids bringing up even all these years later. Their story kicked off like a movie. Funny guy meets funny girl, sparks fly, cameras flash, the world falls in love with them. But insiders said the turning point came shockingly early, way before the public saw any cracks. Between 2006 and 2007, people close to the couple started noticing something off. Every date night slowly turned into debate night. It wasn't dinner and laughter anymore. It was autism discussions, vaccine arguments, and endless planning tied to Jenny's activism. Jim didn't see the trap at first. He thought he was just being supportive, standing by someone he cared about. But what he didn't realize was that he was being pulled into a political storm he never planned to join. By 2008, Jim Carrey, Hollywood's comedy king, had suddenly become the unexpected face of the anti-vaccine conversation. Not because he wanted to be, but because Jenny needed a powerful name to back her message. Jim showed up at rallies, gave speeches, and even helped fund projects. He was trying to be there for her and her son Evan, offering real emotional support. But behind the smiles and photo ops, the cost was adding up fast. Major movie offers started disappearing quietly. Studio execs didn't want the controversy following them. Then things got even more intense. Jenny began pushing him to go harder, to make bolder public statements that Jim wasn't comfortable with. He hesitated, wanting to stay respectful and cautious, but she didn't back down. Insiders said she even scolded him in private, telling him he was letting families down by holding back. That's when Jim realized what started as love had turned into a battlefield of beliefs and public pressure. It was non-stop pressure, day after day, interview after interview, until Jim finally realized something shocking. The activist version of him, the public spokesperson image everyone saw, was being created without his permission. He hadn't agreed to it, hadn't planned it, and yet suddenly the world thought that was who he was. Their breakup in April 2010 looked clean and polite on the surface, just another amicable split in the tabloids. But insiders knew the truth ran way deeper. That same week, Jenny shut down her autism school and hinted that she and Jim had different visions, which people close to them said was her coded way of referencing their constant clashes. Jim originally planned to buy out her co-founder and keep the school running, but in the end, he walked away from everything. For him, that moment wasn't just heartbreak. It felt like betrayal, hidden inside the language of activism. And that's why Jenny McCarthy's name stays locked on Jim's blacklist. No second chances, no comeback stories. Number 4. Mark Wahlberg, the Hollywood veteran who decided to publicly throw shade at Jim Carrey when nobody asked him to. Mark Wahlberg didn't meet a feud with Jim, but he lit one up anyway, with a single comment that spread across Hollywood like wildfire. During a 2009 interview, a reporter asked Mark about actors getting involved in controversial issues, and without even blinking, he fired off, "Actors should shut up and just act." That one line hit hard, and everyone instantly knew who he was talking about. The timing was too perfect to ignore. Jim had just been pulled into the vaccine debate because of Jenny's activism, and Wahlberg's words sounded like a straight-up jab. What made it sting wasn't just the message, it was the tone. Wahlberg, the same guy known for his wild street fight past and trouble-filled early years, suddenly standing on a moral high ground, acting like Hollywood's rule enforcer. The irony was loud enough to echo. Jim didn't clap back publicly, not because he agreed, but because he couldn't believe the hypocrisy. Wahlberg had built his early fame by being the rebel, the rule breaker, the shock value king, and now he was calling out someone else for coloring outside the lines? Please. Behind closed doors, Jim saw it all for what it was. Hollywood politics at its finest. Loud, selective, strategic, And the part nobody knew, Wahlberg reportedly kept repeating that same line in private, doubling down every chance he got, like he wanted people to remember who he'd called out. It wasn't just a one-time dig, it became a quiet campaign, and for Jim, that kind of fake moral showmanship was impossible to forgive. A few months later, word started spreading through the grapevine. Mark Wahlberg wasn't done talking. Insiders overheard him saying Jim was hurting the industry and making other actors look irresponsible. Those whispers spread fast across the studios, and before long, Jim started noticing the shift. Offers slowed down, meetings got quietly canceled, and projects that once had his name on the shortlist started moving forward without him. Meanwhile, Wahlberg's career kept climbing higher and higher. No scratches, no setbacks, just smooth sailing. Jim saw the pattern clear as day. Wahlberg wasn't just criticizing him for the headlines, he was using Jim's controversy to polish his own image, playing the disciplined professional while letting Jim take all the heat. And that slick move, Jim never forgot it. It burned into his memory, and Wahlberg's name stayed there for good. Number 5. The Kardashians. The fame empire Jim Carrey flat out refused to applaud. Now, Jim never had a personal feud with the Kardashian family, but they still earned a spot on his blacklist, and they didn't even have to say a word to do it. The wild part, it all started with one red carpet question that hit Jim at the worst possible time. It was 2017 at a Harper's Bazaar event celebrating icons. Cameras flashing, reporters everywhere, the usual glitz and noise. A reporter rushed up to Jim, all excited, and asked, "What brings you here tonight?" And that's when Jim dropped one of his most legendary responses ever. He said, "I don't believe in icons. That's the lowest aiming possibility we could come up with." The interviewer froze, totally speechless. People watching the clip online thought Jim was joking. Nope, he meant every word. Just a few feet away, the Kardashians were posing on the red carpet as the night's main headliners, soaking up the spotlight like royalty. And to Jim, that was the exact kind of celebrity culture he couldn't stand, the kind built on fame, branding, and social media perfection, instead of real creative work. Seeing them hailed as icons made something inside him snap. Witnesses said Jim looked visibly irritated as fans and press swarmed the Kardashians, while genuine artists, people who had clawed their way up through years of work, barely got a glance. At one point, he reportedly muttered under his breath that it all felt like he was living in the Truman Show for real. That moment stuck with him, the realization that fame had shifted from art to marketing. And for Jim Carrey, that was the line he refused to cross, no matter how Hollywood tried to spin it. Jim didn't wait for the cameras to stop rolling. He just walked off, leaving everyone stunned. And that moment wasn't just a one-time reaction. In a Vanity Fair interview a year later, he doubled down, saying the whole Kardashian phenomenon wasn't healthy for anyone. To Jim, they symbolized a Hollywood that had traded soul for flash, and that was it for him. That one night sealed it. He was done with that whole world, for good. Number 6. Will Smith. The moment that made Jim Carrey completely lose faith in Hollywood. Now, Will Smith hadn't been anywhere near Jim's blacklist for years, not even close. But that all changed in one single night, a night the entire world saw live. What shocked Jim wasn't just Will's action, it was how Hollywood reacted right after. The Oscars are supposed to be the biggest night in the industry, the moment everyone shows their best side, all smiles and class. But instead, Jim said it felt like the mask finally slipped. When Will Smith walked on stage and slapped Chris Rock, Jim wasn't even stunned by the actual hit. "People crack under pressure sometimes," he said later, calm but disappointed. It happens. What really shook him to the core wasn't the slap, it was what happened next, the standing ovation. Jim later told reporters, his voice heavy with disgust, "I was sickened. It was the clearest indication we're not the cool club anymore." That was the moment he realized the system he'd given 40 decades of his life to had lost its backbone. What disgusted him wasn't just Will, it was the performative morality, the fake unity, the obsession with image instead of truth. And what finally pushed him over the edge was hearing people backstage defending it like it was some kind of heroic act. One crew member even heard an actress whisper he was protecting his wife, like it was some legendary movie moment instead of real-life chaos. The next morning, Jim came out swinging with a statement that exploded across every headline. He said, "If it were me, I'd have sued him for $200 million. That video's gonna be there forever." And he wasn't exaggerating. He was calling out the double standard because, as he put it, if a regular person had done that, they'd have been escorted out of the building instantly. But a powerful celebrity, they got a trophy and applause. From that night on, Jim's faith in Hollywood was gone. He didn't just see one man lose control, he saw the entire industry expose itself. To him, Will Smith didn't just embarrass himself, he revealed exactly how twisted the system had become, where status matters more than integrity, and accountability gets traded for applause.